it's Charlotte Hawkins here. Welcome to Leaps and Hounds Series 3, the podcast that we run in conjunction with the Dogs Trust. I am here with Eloise from the Animal Behaviour team at the Dogs Trust. Welcome back, Eloise.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. And this is a key episode because this one is all about the biting, the mouthing, the teething, whatever you want to call it. There are different degrees of it, but I think especially with puppies, it can be a real issue. And Eloise, you also have worked on the dog behaviour support line, haven't you, for the Dogs Trust, which is people can ring in, they can get dog training advice. And, you know, that the idea is that you can give them some top tips to help people getting to the end of their tether with their dogs. And this is a really key problem, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And when I was on the behaviour support line, any call about puppy, I would say 90% of it was the mouthing stage, because everyone knows puppies go through this teething stage and puppy mouthing is something to expect, but there's so many different degrees to it, and some unfortunately just experience it a lot more intensely than others do. But the behaviour support line is a great way to sort of get some free expert advice on those things and top tips and whatnot.
Yeah, so please use that if it's something that you're finding really difficult. But, you know, we've got some top tips for you to help overcome it. I think I was surprised when I got Moose. You know, we all know, puppies chew things, but I sort of thought that you could say to them, you know, you'd very soon be able to train them, no, we don't like it when you use your teeth, and they'd kind of cotton on quite quickly and then they'd stop using their teeth. But that is not the case at all. It is actually quite hard to get them to not use their teeth because it's just part of nature that's what they do. And then even when you think you've made progress, they'll still get excited or they'll have these mad moments. And I think especially when you've got children in the house, I was worried about Ella Rose. You know, I'd turn around at one point and he'd be like hanging off her sleeve or something. And actually, you know, I thought I really need to make sure that we get on top of this so that he knows it's not appropriate to use his teeth with anybody.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's something I think a lot of people are very keen to sort of get them to stop doing. But we do need to remember that it is a natural behaviour. So instead of trying to stop it, I think the focus should be providing safe outlets to perform that behaviour. So it's going to be multifactorial. It's going to be helping to sort of calm them down, sort of self-regulate their emotions by sort of chewing down on things. It's also going to be a natural pain reliever for those that teething period. Biting down on things is going to feel really good for them. And like we said, it is natural. Some dogs can do it through adolescence as well and adulthood, but hopefully they're just choosing appropriate things to mouth on, like their toys or chews or something, rather than our hands or sort of clothing or sort of furniture or things like that. Yeah,
okay. So it's sort of having those things that will keep them busy and hopefully fulfill that function. What about how you react? Because there are lots of sort of different schools of thought, aren't there, as to how you react when a dog is using its teeth. You know, do you kind of tell them off? Do you try and distract them, getting them to do something else? Do you completely sort of ignore them, turn your back, so then they realise, okay, if I use my teeth, then I don't get any attention at all? You know, some people have a short, sharp command. Some people say, oh, like the mum would kind of, you know, nip them, so you should sort of do something right behind their ear or so. You know, what's your best advice on how to manage that situation, and what's the most effective about discouraging them from using their teeth?
So there's a few things I tend to recommend, like a few general tips, and again, it is so dependent on that individual puppy. If they are mouthing you, the first thing I would do is just stop all the fun. So it quite often happens if you're playing or engaging with them. So you would just want to remove all your attention. If you give them a second, they might sort of stop and go, oh, and then we can then continue that affection or that toy play. So they sort of learn, oh, okay, if I put my teeth on your skin, everything stops. That's if we've caught them early enough. Quite often, we're going to have to redirect them onto something else to help them out. So that might mean we go to their toy box, pick up a chew, a toy or something. Sometimes toys aren't going to cut it, unfortunately, and the most fun thing is going to be sort of your hands.
Yeah.
I tend to say to people during this phase, have some things pre-made in the fridge ready to go, like that lick mat, like that Kong. It's already set up, so really quick access. We can just pop that on our puppy's beds, give them something else to do altogether. There are going to be those moments where nothing sort of satiates that dog, unfortunately. They just want to chew and to mouth you. In those moments, we do need to have our boundaries because it's not appropriate and it really hurts.
Yeah.
So that might be where we use stair gates or sort of their safe space or something. And again, it's not punishment. We're not sort of leaving them high and dry, sort of feeling really frustrated and they have no outlet, because we're going to be supplying those things that they need. We're going to give them a Kong or a lick mat or a chew, their toys, things that they can appropriately chew and take that sort of energy out on, but we're just going to remove access to ourselves because it's not appropriate.
Yeah, because I found with Moose that, you know, there are, even though he has got a lot better, there are still times where he just kind of forgets. And I think as he's so excited, and obviously that's like their first reaction is to use their teeth for things, isn't it? That he just kind of can't really control that to a sense. So, but that's often when it's been quite excitable. So I'm thinking, right, I need to make sure that it's calm, a calmer environment, that he then can sort of chill out a bit more. I do use the crate in that situation because I've found that, you know, sometimes when he hasn't got that control and he's maybe moving from one person to the other and he's like, right, I'm going to sort of use my mouth here and then use my mouth there. And instead of sort of using it as a punishment, I've just kind of used it as, okay, let's have a bit of time out, and just encouraged him to go to his crate with a treat and just chill out for a bit. And that usually helps, I find, because sometimes I just think you don't want to get to that situation where you can't control it, do you?
Exactly that. And I think Moose is a great example because you've built the crate up so positively already. So he knows that as a safe, positive space where he goes and chills out. So again, for thinking about this puppy mouthing stage, this is another sort of maybe tool we want to have in our toolbox to say that they do have that safe space, that they do go and feel calm in. But having those resources again to provide them, and in the puppy stages when it is the teething, maybe things like frozen carrots, freezing a tea towel, stuff like that, because the cold is going to feel nice sort of on their gums and their teeth. When they get a bit older into adolescence, sometimes we do see a spike again when their hormones are all over the place.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Again,
I've got that to look forward to, have I?
sometimes. And again, that biting is that natural stress reliever, that sort of mouthing down hard on things. But again, we're just going to go back to these resources. We're going to give them appropriate stuff to chew, and we're going to have those boundaries in place to sort of teach them what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And like my dog's 8 now, and when he gets frustrated, he goes straight to his toy box and starts chewing and shredding those.
Right. So then you can tell from that as well that it will happen with older dogs as well. What about when you've got to worry about the kind of, you know, mouthing or teething, you know, whether that's frequency, whether that's intensity? I mean, I was really interested because we adopted Moose from the Dogs Trust and they do follow-up calls, as you will know. So, you know, I got a call sort of just asking me about the kind of behaviours he was demonstrating, whether there are any problem behaviours, whether there was any sort of, you know, any snarling or snapping or anything like that. So what are the warning signs which we hadn't had from Moose, but what are the warning signs that people should look out for?
Yeah, so typically puppy mouthing is essentially that, it's the teething stages. But the kind of red flags I'd be looking for is if there has been a specific sort of event that's triggered this. So maybe someone has approached the puppy when they've got a particular resource and then they've had sort of puppy mouthing or biting. That would be a bit more of an indication that you know, it wasn't just a bit of frustration or a bit of exploratory behaviour. This is a communication signal that that puppy isn't very happy. And again, like you mentioned, all those things, the frequency, the intensity, some puppies do experience it more sort of higher than other puppies, and that will go to genetics and sort of what they're being taught as well. But sometimes, you know, we might need to be referring back to vets because sometimes even digestive upset can cause sort of a massive spike in mouthing behaviours. So if it is going on for a long time, if you're not seeing any improvements, it would be worth having a deeper dive, and maybe we need to look at some other things.
Well, that's, you know, that's good to know. I mean, I have a rule here, particularly I always worry sort of when there are children and I'm trying to get him to a space where he knows no teeth on flesh at all. So that's kind of what I'm trying to enforce at the moment. I realised with Ella Rose, I think because when she plays with him, it's all very exciting. She's got quite a lot of high energy. He was seeing her as like another puppy. And that's why, interestingly, although he wasn't doing it to me, he would be mouthing her more, because I think he thought, oh yeah, she's like a playmate. And what I did there was sort of to encourage her to keep everything calmer when she was playing with him, and also get her to give him some of the commands. So one thing that does work with him is if he gets a bit excitable and he starts using his teeth, it's trying to sort of snap him out of that brain. And I get her to say, okay, can you get him to sit now? You know, and then when he then thinks, oh, okay, I'm actually being told to do something, that's where his brain is focused on. But people do have to be careful around children, don't they? And again, you know, they might think, oh yeah, my dog is lovely and, you know, he wouldn't do that. But actually, children can do things really unpredictably that a dog isn't expecting. So it is important to be careful.
It is, yeah, and that's the thing, we can't predict what children are going to do 1 minute to the next, let alone a puppy or a dog. And I think we do need to obviously make sure the interactions are nice and calm and we're teaching appropriate manners, but there is a level of it as well where we need to kind of expose them to exciting things for those sort of situations where they are going to see a child, or be in a cafe and someone's going to approach, or, you know, just those exciting events, and they need to be somewhat resilient. So in sort of high arousal situations, let's say we're doing some toy play with them, we might then want to try and re-engage that thinking part of their brain, exactly like you said, by getting them to do some simple known sort of tricks like sits, paws, downs, just so that they can get a little bit heightened and we can bring them back down predictably. Or we get them a little bit heightened and then do some scent games, so we're lowering those stress levels as well. So anything exciting is just paired with then, right, we're now going to bring you back down, and that's going to help our puppy make sensible decisions and not go, now I'm really frustrated, I have to sort of vent this somewhere, I'm going to go back to that mouthing because that's what feels good.
And what would you say about boundaries when it comes to teething and mouthing? You know, should you be completely strict that no teeth involved at all, you know, or is it the case that, oh yeah, the puppy's chewing my shoelaces, oh never mind? You know, how important is it to sort of be really clear from the start, or is it something that gradually they will grow out of?
I think a lot of it is personal preference as well, because some people will sort of go, okay, a bit of mouthing's fine, but there's the bite inhibition. So as soon as that pressure gets too much, that's where I draw the line. Some people would say no teeth on skin, and that's the line. As long as we're being really consistent with our puppy, I think the hardest thing is where we go, right, today I'm not going to allow this because I'm tired and I'm not in the mood and, you know, I'm going to be really strict. And the next day, oh, I don't really mind. Do you know what I mean? We just have to be consistent with whatever rules it is that we choose, and also letting everyone in the household and visitors know. I think, I don't know if you've experienced it, but you're trying to teach Moo stuff, then you get a visitor come over and go, oh my God, it's a puppy, and sort of rough and tumble or get really excitable and undo all that training. So it's just sort of giving everyone else the heads up as well, of going, oh, I'm trying to teach this, if we could all stick to those rules. Yeah. Even though it can be a bit awkward.
It is hard. Well, I've had it before, because then people will come over and of course they think it's cute and they don't mind the puppy chewing their hand, and you know, they're like, oh no, it's fine, don't worry. And then of course I've got to do the whole strict dog mum. Well, actually we don't allow teeth on skin, but you know, you've got to kind of reinforce the rules that you want to have, haven't you? Because at the end of the day, it's your dog, you're responsible for it. And again, like I'll say, you know, I've got my daughter, and when she's got friends over, for example, and I just hate to think that, you know, there are any teeth involved, then that's my responsibility. And I think that you do have to make sure, particularly when there are children around, that you do watch your dogs in those early stages and just make sure that you're across everything that's happening, don't you?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's, as you said, just being really consistent with it and looking at your setup and what's going to be appropriate and not, because so many people, I think, accept things when puppies are tiny and it is cute, and then change the criteria as they hit adolescence, and suddenly it's a problem. So it's really good that you're thinking long term of going, you know, we are going to have visitors over, you are going to get bigger, you know, this is a boundary that's in place.
Yeah, and I think making sure that you tackle that early, because I'm thinking he's got tiny teeth at the moment, but you know, when they get bigger and his jaw gets stronger, then you really want to have sort of knocked it on the head by then. I've got the adolescence to come then. That's something to look forward to. Thanks very much for that, Eloise. But that's been really useful. So thank you for all of those top tips. Should we just sum up for everybody about, you know, some of the key things then, the reasons why puppies bite and chew, and actually understanding that means that you can have things on standby, and you were suggesting things like the frozen carrots, or having, you know, whatever it is, whether it's the Kongs or the other treats that they can use their mouths with, and distracting them with those things is a really key thing to have either that or taking them out and having them a bit of time out, a bit of a safe space. Are there any other sort of things to sum up that you think are key points for this one?
I think they're the key points. Swapping things like for like. So if your puppy is sort of chewing on furniture, table legs, maybe we can try and get some wooden chews, things like that. It doesn't have to be expensive as well. Sometimes we can use old recycling cardboard boxes that they can sort of rip, chew, shred. But I think one of the key things as well is preempting it. You know, if you know your puppy is particularly mouthy before bedtime, let's prepare for that. Get something ready in the fridge, good to go. 10 minutes before, we're going to settle them down in the bed.
Because they sometimes have like a witching hour, don't they, where they just go a little bit crazy. We've learnt that to our cost. So thank you so much. And don't forget, the dog behaviour support line is there via the Dogs Trust if you do have any issues when it comes to dogs using their teeth and it's something that you're worried about, because it's a really key one to make sure that you keep on top of. So thank you so much for joining us for the latest episode of Leaps and Hounds, and we'll see you again soon.